K8LX chatted with K8IA, and they both said, hey, ND7K is the station to look at. So here we are, and thank you for showing up, one and all. And Tim, take it away.
Okay, well, everybody, thanks for having me, and glad to be invited to talk about the station. I'd like to start with basically something I always start with, and that is when I was looking at buying land in Arizona, I contacted my buddy Dan N6MJ and let him know that I was interested in building a station that would do well in CWTs and maybe NAQP sweepstakes, things like that. And some local hams out in California were doing very well with as little as some crank-up towers. And Dan, he does very well at helping me spend money. He let me know, is this your forever QTH? And I said, well, yeah, the attached house to the primary radio station intent of buying this land will be there, and it'll be my wife's forever home. And so I guess this will be the forever radio station. And so from there, all of a sudden, things went crazy, and we started talking about strong fixed towers, multiple stacks going to many different directions. And the basis was to look at W6YI as a comparison station out in Southern Cal, and shoot for the stars as far as some of your other guests you've had on, such as K3LR, et cetera. But everything needed to be put together on one 5-acre parcel. I'm able to borrow another 5 acres from my best friend who bought adjacent to me. And so that is being used for receive antennas. So the basis of the station became, what do we want to do? And the question was answered with, well, let's try to win the domestic contests, and let's definitely try to win our zone in the DX contests. And potentially, if the right conditions ever presented themselves and we tried hard enough, maybe even give the East Coast a run for their money in some of the DX contests. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and start with a PowerPoint that I have ready. And it'll cover a lot more and give you some visual ideas of what's happening here. And then as you have questions, I've invited the guys, and they've all been with me for a while now. They know what's gone into this station. I invite any of the guys to go ahead and chime in with anything they deem important as a little bit of a twist on this presentation. So let me go ahead and start screen sharing here now. Okay. Okay, can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes, excellent.
Roger.
Okay, so ND7K is a joint call sign held by Dan, N6MJ, and I. He spent a lot of time watching the vanity calls and really was the motivation behind getting a vanity call. I got mailed N6WIN when I was a kid upon getting my technician license. And I had no idea being in a radio contesting, but the FCC just randomly emailed me N6WIN. So that'll be with me forever. But ND7K, we've agreed, would be good on the air and would give us an ability to differentiate the station here from all the sixes and give people an idea that, hey, we may be a needed multiplier. So the goal I just spoke to you guys about, do well in DX contests and potentially win the domestic contests. I have a satellite image of the QTH in this presentation that's updated. Going to talk about some of the transmit antennas that are planned and forthcoming, some of the RX antennas that are planned. We'll talk about the shack and the equipment shed, and how does the station work with everything put together, and what's planned from here. So the goal, we've covered that, do well, but we'll add in that, have fun exploring propagation from the Southwest, to have a reliable emergency communications ability out here in a rural desert setting, and basically to have fun with friends. This is the QTH here. On the left portion is the house and the shack up in the northern part of the property. And you can see the thumbnails denoting various towers. The basis of the stronger or better performing towers are a number of R65G equivalents from Tasgian towers. They're T26 towers. I've labeled them as T130 and then a designator for where the antennas are mainly pointed. In the southwest corner of the lot is the JA tower. In the southeast corner is the European 20 and 15 stacks. And in the northern portion is the European 40 and 10 stacks. From California, I brought over a crank-up tower, a 70-foot crank-up, and that holds what we call the North American stack. It's a stack of JK mid-tries that we found later on after a few months of contesting would be very beneficial at a point down towards, say, Florida and Texas. On my friend's lot, there is a one wavelength European beverage, a one wavelength JA beverage, and a similar length East and West beverage. You can't see it in this photo here, but it should be definitely stated that off to the left or the west of my property is state land. So basically from VK all the way up through JA is nothing but barren land, and it's quite noise free. And to Europe and to W1, etc., we don't really have a lot of noise because there's not a lot of neighbors here. This is a more rural ranch area. But over to JA and VK, it's like a pin drop as far as noise. The transmit antennas planned. This is a photo of what's happening on all the different towers. This is a photo that I've laminated. I put on all of our operating positions because when newer ops come over here, new to the ND7K, it can be quite overwhelming to look up at the towers and all the different stack options to have them be able to decide what to use on a moment's notice. We're finding that, you know, a walk on Friday before the contest is not sufficient. Folks will forget what their antenna options are very easily. And so we make sure that this is available to all the operators. For instance, a good example of why people get confused here is on 20 meters, we've got a 6/6 to JA. We've got a 6/6/6 to Europe, a 3/3 to North America. And to be able to operate and bring all those antenna options in on the computer screen, we use green heron switching. Sometimes, especially since there are shared masts with the rotors, it can be very, perplexing about, okay, what have I got selected? Where is it heading to? And if I grab my 20-meter antenna, let's say, and turn it somewhere, who else may I be affecting during a multi-op? And so this is out on a lot of the operating desks. The transmit antennas planned. Well, I'm showing a photo here of what happened as far as last year's WPX sideband. We added a couple of JA 7/7s. They're home brewed using Auto Easy Neck as the idea. Tim's K3LR's OWA concept was the basis. And I produced a couple of OWAs roughly based on his designs, but optimized for out here, my hypes and over really pretty much cruddy quality soil as compared to out in Pennsylvania. And those antennas were put up by Hector XE2K, about 4 WPX-CW. And we were fortunate to have a nice ability to run into JA with that addition. Pretty much all of the towers are dressed out right now. There will be some forthcoming antennas, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation. For the RX antennas, like I said, we got a few beverages. All of them are at 580-foot lengths. Dave, N2NL, had recommended those lengths to me, and I know Dave from his H2 experience to have quite a good idea on beverages. So I followed his advice, and we've been finding that the beverages are working real fine business out here. We use them oftentimes anywhere from not only 160 meters and 80, but also on 40, and sometimes even on 20 meters. They can be very helpful, even compared to the transmit antennas. All the beverages have 3 ground rods at the feed point and termination point. over here, again, the soil is not very conductive, so I try to do whatever I can to help aid that disadvantage. Been following W8JI and ON4UN's books and writings and so forth, their website, etc. And so what I've tried to do is to run conduit about 18 inches underground to various receive antenna feed point areas. RG11 ran in the conduit, and RG6 is temporarily ran above ground for test purposes to make sure an antenna deserves to live here. And I run RG6 flooded because of the varmints around here, finding that the rabbits and so forth are enjoying eating those wires. And so the flooded component helps out when they do pierce the shields. Common mode chokes and grounded shields are installed 12 yards from all feed points, and they transition to these underground runs. I believe I picked that up from W8JI's writings. I'm just trying to make sure that I can keep off some of that common mode noise off of the receive antenna's coax lines. So every now and then when a new antenna's run, I bring a backhoe out here, we dig a trench, put in some conduit, some additional grounding, etc., and then make sure to shield as much as we can underneath the ground from both noise and also a varmint perspective. Some of the local latest shack upgrades. Marty, NN1C, was kind enough to come out here for a week before both WPXs, I should say, last year. And he added an MOAS system, the mother of all switches. Paul, K1XM, and him have put a lot of work into that concept. And Bill, W9KN, was kind enough to build a number of the components and add in some technical guru stuff. Basically, we added that system, as you see in the bottom left photo. And then in the bottom right is the additional, the trench for the additional hard lines and 4 RX lines that we ran. That's important because Marty gave us the ability to do all kinds of stuff that I never had a concept for. And those kinds of concepts and abilities was that basically band partners could select any combination of transmit and receive antennas automatically. It's all done via software. It's on the fly based on PTT and software coding. It gives us the ability that any operating position in the shack can be on any band. The setup for the concept of the contest is done pre-contest. And all I can say is that it's way above my head, above my pay grade. It's pretty complex. And I rely on NN1C or guys like W9KKN to give us that ability. Because normally, and my knowledge of all this good stuff, I'll just run GHE's green heron anywhere, everywhere better yet. And we'll switch antennas via software and hotkeys and so forth in the shack. But when Marty or Bill's able to give us enough time, they'll come out and implement this MOAS system. And I think it gives us one of the best abilities pretty much out there. Give me just a moment here. Okay. So the shack upgrades included Marty customizing or speccing out a custom box that K9AY was commissioned to build. It's an 8x4 switch controlled by the MOAS software. It gives us an additional ability to run those receive antennas that I have to any radio in the shack. It gives us the ability, excuse me, gives us the ability to give those antennas anywhere in the shack. They've got individual band position. So for instance, if somebody wants to listen to Europe on the 160, on the European beverage, somebody else can also use that same antenna to listen on another band while anyone else is doing whatever they want with the other antennas. He added stack matches in the shack to facilitate increased antenna switching, requiring additional hard lines from the equipment shed. I may be, Greg, how's my internet connection? Good? Okay, I got an error message. So the stack matches were added, and it gave us increased ability to be able to use our transmit antennas. in order to be able, during multi-multis when we have band partners, we're able to use basically any combination. Let's say on 20 meters, if I have 8 transmit antennas, Marty's MOAS system is able to give us the ability to say, run towards both Europe and JA on the run position, but maybe have the in-band partner only listening to JA, while the runner only listens in RXs to Europe. And so you will basically see when 2 guys are running on one frequency with one person talking on sideband, or maybe both people TXing on CW on a first come, first served basis. One operator may be listening to one segment or multiple segments of the world, while the other operator is listening to an exclusive other area. And so the run operator may or may not ever hear somebody that the other op is listening to, but based on what their hand signals are and what the operators are seeing on each other's computer screens, you may have a situation where I'm listening to Europe and Marty is over on Japan. I see that JA1 USA is input into his computer screen. So I call out JA1 USA, I give my exchange. Marty just hits enter. I see that the call is logged. I haven't heard anything, but I say, thanks, ND7K. And so that MOAS system gives us an ability to really be able to listen to many parts of the world and operate pretty efficiently as partners. So here on this slide, the equipment shed upgrades. We've added insulation inside the shed because in IRU 2020, we started to have problems with some of the GHE hardware. The ambient temps were up and the RT21s were blowing fuses on a 115-degree day here on the property. So insulation was added, and that's helped out and solved our problems with the GHE overheating thus far. RG400 was added to increase the interstation interference defensibility here. And I started replacing 403A equipment as I've been having problems with it failing with Pavel's VA6AM's equipment. And 12 volts was added to run to all equipment fans, something that I didn't have to do in Southern California, but I'm learning out here in this desert heat is a necessity. So how does it all work? Well, we got really surprised. In CQ Worldwide Sideband 2020, operating as a multi-2, we were able to finish number one in North America. And I don't know that that's ever going to happen again. I think it was the right place at the right time with the right people. We were working hard. We had a mindset that we could potentially win, and we did. However, what ended up is a reality is that, I don't think that this is going to happen again. But Dan had once told me, it can be done from the West Coast, but nobody believes it, so nobody tries hard enough. Maybe they do, maybe they don't try hard enough, but we gave it our all. We showed up and we were able to win multi-2 in Worldwide Sideband in 2020. This was the crew. It was a little bit more basic shack. Have Bill, W9KKN, operating the old 10 Tech. Fan was humming away like crazy, so we put a protein shake box on it. John, W4IX, and I are working in band together on one band or another, most likely 20 meters being daytime. And Dan N6MJ was our captain, putting it all together and letting us know where to be. And our grizzled old veteran, Kurt, W6PH, he's not pictured, but he definitely pulled his fair share of operating time to help us out during that contest. In NAQP, CW, and sideband that year, the combined winner was ND7K as Dan operating N6MJ. Pictured here is his SO3R operation. He is probably the only person that I know that does 2B SIQ on sideband extremely efficiently. Not only did he show it over here, but he also, I believe, he won ARRL DX sideband from TI doing that 2B SIQ ability of his on sideband. It was something else. But while we haven't been able to take a first place finish in NAQP CW yet, he placed third. He placed first in sideband and was able to take home the combined winner plaque. In Worldwide CW, our M2, our M2 took second place in NA. And in both sweepstakes, we lost the record by one QSO in CW and less than 20 QSOs in sideband. So remember, one of the goals was to maybe win sweepstakes, but in multi-single, our new goal is to take down the overall record. So the station's definitely playing well domestically. In WPX sideband, we played as a multi-multi. We got 16.5 million points, giving us a first place North America win and a new W7 record. This is the crew there in front of the European 20 and 10 tower. And everybody's up on top enjoying some post-contest beverages before our barbecue. Our master smoker is Chris, KO9A, and we have a great time after the contest. We'll take in the sunset up on the deck and enjoy a post-contest camaraderie. In WPXCW, we were able to make another 16.9 million points, placing first in NA. We placed better yet, we're able to set a brand new Zone 3 record. And we've had the most Qs in that contest of all W7 and W6 operations. We had folks come out for that one from Boston, Georgia, California, New Mexico. I think we've got a total of 3 WRTC competitors in that photo there. It was quite the team, probably the best assembly of quality operators in the West Coast ever. I'm very fortunate in that my captain, Dan, is able to attract some good quality folks, and we have a great time. It's not only a great operation from an efficiency standpoint, but we probably have some great stories to tell from the after contest times too. In IRU 2021, Dan came back to operate. This is the SO3R setup that Dan was practiced for CQ Worldwide CW that was coming up after the summer. We used 37610s. A big thing that we had picked up from Axel, KI6RRN, was the thought that maybe we could start doing some stuff with using visual aids, using the 7610 output as basically like a pan adapter. And so Dan was practicing a bit in that contest with going from a trace to trace via computer hotkeys, especially on the third radio. I believe he was able to make 40 or 50 Qs on that third radio, that contest, which is a pretty good amount. Dan, can you add in as to how you felt about the third radio in IRU last summer?
Yeah, so I think that was probably one of my better outings with the third radio. I put a lot of practice into that over the years, and it's definitely one of the harder skills to acquire. But I think it kind of all came together in IARU. And like you said, I think you were right about 40 or 50 Qs. And that really is a lot for the third radio itself. And I think that having the actual visual display on the screen helped a little bit. But in the end, I think we decided that it wasn't helping enough. There was only like one portion of the contest where I really felt in the groove using that particular method. But otherwise, just tuning the radio like you normally would seemed to be the better option for me anyway.
Yeah, Dan definitely did a good job with it. I was amazed at seeing how many Qs he was able to do afterwards, as I've had Dan over here many times, and we've talked about, you know, what that third radio does as far as a distraction and as an aid. And to see him do that many Qs on it, it was pretty neat. And that doesn't happen every contest, no doubt. There's been times where Dan's made only a handful of Qs, less than 10. And, you know, he'll kind of wonder, like, you know, was it worth the distraction? Yeah, maybe I picked up some Qs and some mults, but did I give up something on the other two radios? So when we show 3 radios, it's not like some of the stuff you'll see on Facebook, where some of the operators will talk, you know, SO4R, I guess somebody maybe even will try to show SO6R. And you wonder, like, you know, how are you doing this? How are you honestly doing it as far as actually picking up efficiency and points versus the distractions that truly exist? And Dan's one of the best guys I know as far as multitasking like that. And you know, that's not saying anything negative about anybody else, but I've been around Dan the most when he's doing this, and it really is something. So in IRU, all the equipment you see in front of you and all the stuff that you've seen up in the air and in the equipment shed, all those bandpass filters and RG400 and so forth, and Dan's operating ability that he's honed in from so many years of contesting allowed for another first place finish from the West Coast, a Zone 6 record. And I think it really hammered home some concepts that he might want to try in the future at places, and he did later on at CAMs and so forth over at CP Worldwide CW. So what's planned? Coming up shortly, in fact, Axel will be over here next week. Well, this weekend, Dan and Axel will be over here for NAQP CW. We'll be doing a multi-2 along with John, W4IX, and we'll be giving W2FU a run for their money, hopefully. Afterwards, Axel will be on site for the week before NAQP sideband comes around, in which he'll be doing single op. And we will be working on a fourth 8-element 10-meter OWA that will be placed on the northern tower, the EU 1040 tower, at 120 feet and affixed to Europe. We'll be putting a lower K3LR 40-meter OWA that I was fortunate enough to get a couple of years ago from him at 70 feet to Europe. We'll be adding some more RX options. I think Axel and I will have time to start setting up at the least a 20-meter vertical for some in-band operating use on the RX side, and hopefully a 4-square while we're at it.
Yeah, looks like everything's good.
And then a 80-meter K3LR 4-square. It's half of his own 4x4 square that I was able to pick up from him. Should be going up in the next year or two from now. And future replacement of some aging K3s. You've only seen pictures of the 7610s we've got on hand from ICOM. However, up until we had those 7610s, I was only using K3s, and they are part of our multi operation. But we're looking, you know, for the future as far as what's going to be reliable and non-latency. You know, I've got a Flex 6600. At this point in time, I am not impressed with it for the level of contesting that the operators who come here do. And so the 7610's been doing wonderful. And of course, the future will tell if the K4 or the 7610 in that you know, budget point that they're in will be the replacement radios for some of the K3s on site. Okay, so some questions. We've got Chris, KL9A here, Nate, N4YDU. These are some guys that have done some amazing things. Dave Mueller, N2NL in his own right, has done tons of great stuff. All these guys are amazing operators. We got Axel, KI6RRN here. Wasn't planning to open it up necessarily to an open discussion, but if anybody has questions of things, I want to invite you know, the guys to add in. Bill, W9KKN, he's our tech guru. Without Bill, I don't think we could do a number of this stuff, especially since Marty can't be around all the time. So what questions have made the group have? That makes it easy.
Tim.
Yes.
Tim. The slides, the diagrams that you showed originally of the towers and what was going on, what is on the towers at each level was a little bit hard to see. Can you go over band by band exactly what is up and where it is and where it's fixed or not fixed? Okay,
sure. So on 10 meters, currently there is an 8/8/8 stack to Europe. Some of the antennas have been moved to W1 at the lower heights because my home is so close to that northern tower. On 10 meters, I am picking up a little bit of noise on the bottom antennas heading to Europe. And so we've decided with that forthcoming fourth 8L that we'll basically run the two at 120 and 90 to Europe, and the two lower ones away from the house a little bit at 60 and 30 to W1. On 10 meters also on the JA tower, there's a 7/7, yeah, 10/7s. They're fixed to JA at 80 and 45. And then to North America, you've got the two mid-tries. That's a 4/4 at 75 and 35 feet that we'll use usually down to W4 area. On 15 meters, there is a 777 to Europe at 90, 60, and 30. Let me see. I'm saying that wrong, actually.
Tim, while you're going over this, why don't you put up that overhead picture of the whole QTH so we know what tower is what?
Okay, well, yeah, I think I could do that. I may be a little off on my heights, though, because what
That's
I've got.
okay.
Okay. All right, so let's see. Let me go back, figure out how to go back here. That's something that, I'm just going to start this thing over. Okay, so the overhead photo. Okay, so on 15, we've got a 7/7 to JA. It's about 120 and 90 feet, I believe. And again, that mid-tri stack is a 4/4 to North America. The European stack is the 777s on the Southeast European tower. On 20 meters to Europe, on that same Southeast tower, is a 6/6/6 with the top one rotating. To Japan, there is a 6/6 with the top rotating. So we're looking at about 130 and 60 feet-ish over there. To North America, those mid-tries, again at 75 and 35, are a 3/3. On 40 meters, there's a full-size 40-meter OWA on the northern tower that rotates. And on the southwestern tower to JA, there's a rotating JK 404C. It's basically like a 3L dual driven. Works pretty well until we get to around 7250. Then we got to watch our drive power as far as amplifiers being happy. On 80 meters, there's a dipole on the JA, that southwestern tower. There's a dipole that's at 145 feet. It's a shorty dipole with a tornado tuner in the middle. And via the GHE Everywhere software, we're able to use an RT21 and a remote to say, okay, go ahead and go to this location as far as what the resonant point is. So we're going to be 1.1, 1.4, anywhere in that band. We have to change it about, depending, we change it about every 20 kc or so, that GHE stuff to say where the antenna should be resonant to keep the amplifiers happy. And then on 160, what you can't really see is in between the two European towers, there's a catenary line that holds a full-size vertical on 160. Okay, so I think that covers the antennas question. Any other questions?
How's your lightning situation?
Good question. So this year, well, basically, throughout, from all the towers, there are trenches. And in those trenches, not only are there coax lines, but there's also a 2-inch copper strap. There's number 4 bare, many ground rods. I think I got 32 ground rods currently throughout the QTH. Some ground rods are driven vertical to meet the requirements for the permits that were pulled on the towers from the engineer. But most of the ground rods are actually laying by them on their sides. Something that UFR had actually written to the military about in places like New Mexico and so forth. And the concept there is that while I can't really drive this stuff down into the caliche or the bedrock here very easily, that starts at 2.5 feet, I can add a little bit of copper in those trenches. So there's any time that I dig a trench, I like to add copper ground rods and at least number 4 bare into those trenches. And so the network is basically probably 25 of those ground rods are down by the southern towers. And about 8 ground rods or so are around the shack and or at the house. And then the rebar in the house, in the house's concrete pad, along with the rebar in the tower pads, were all tied into this matrix. So I keep at least a good portion of my station going at all times because of the RHR contract that I have. And this station is always on at all given times, even during the summer monsoon season, which I've learned many of the Arizonans don't do. And thus far, the only casualties to lightning has been an Alpha Delta 4-position switches gas tube and 1 polyphaser. So after 3 years of being up and operating, it's been basically 1 lightning arrestor and 1 gas tube.
Wow. You get a lot of lightning out there.
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's some good video that I've taken and photos and so forth too. Other questions?
Yeah, maybe one for Dan, Tim. Either one of you. Scheduling of operators on bands and especially band partners. How sticky does that get personality-wise? Is there problems there? I mean, there's always a potential for problems when you get a lot of very high-level personalities working together.
Yeah, I'll take that one. I'm mostly in charge of handling the operating schedule for most of our multi-ops, and it really is an issue. And the thing that we like to look at is we want to make sure that the person understands what our main goal is for the contest. And we've had a few situations in the past where we've had some issues with some of the operators, and after each contest we go back and we kind of take a look and figure out, okay, who worked well together? Is there anybody in this group that really didn't work, and maybe we shouldn't invite them back? Because in the end, this is a team effort. When we do multi-ops, it's not about one guy, and we have a lot of really good operators coming through the station. So even though I can say I'm a good operator, there's other guys in the shack that are just as good as me too. So it's not all about me. It's not all about them. We really like to look at each person's personality as well, and make sure they actually fit with our group. And we'll bring new people in all the time, and if they work out, that's awesome. If things don't go quite as planned, we look at that for the future too, where we might not invite them out again. So it's a really it's really hard to actually get this part right, because you want to make sure that everybody's happy, you want to make sure that everybody's having fun, and you want to make sure that the team is working well together. And to get all three of those things right each time, it's super hard. But we've got a good core group of guys now who've all operated together before, and that's really helpful. And then we slowly bring in other guys into the group and make sure that they work well. So hopefully that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, KL9A, are you available to give comment on something?
Yeah, no problem. What's up?
Okay, just wanted to make sure you were there and you weren't going to the bathroom or something. Chris, part of the request for this PowerPoint wasn't just about the station build, but also about some of the technologies that we've implemented inside the shack. And you've been to a lot of stations throughout the world. You've guest stopped at some of the best places. You've been on some of the best teams. When you were here for WPX and Marty really had that MOAS system singing, can you comment on some of the capabilities that provided during you were a band captain, as I recall, on 20 meters. And we really gave the full effort to giving 20 meters as much capabilities as possible. Are you able to add something in and describe what we were able to do?
Yeah, I wish you had a slide that kind of showed it a little bit, but for those of you who don't know, is he just has there's like buttons on a screen and you can see, okay, I want to select Europe. He's got 6,000 antennas on 20. I want to select the Europe stack and, I want to point it every 10 degrees and whatever. So I could run Europe. Guy next to me could listen to the Europe stack while I was also using it. But the second I was transmitting, it would automatically switch him to another antenna that maybe he heard better on. And then let's say, he wants to work an 8Q7 and it's a different heading. He can still listen on those antennas. And the second that he wants to change it, it's seamless. I can't tell anything. So you can work multipliers while listening on any antenna at any time. The run guy can change his in and out. It was the coolest thing I've seen in a very, very long time. We're going to K3LR next month, and the in-band there is amazing. But the MOAS is like 5 steps better than the traditional in-band transmit separate tower and everything. It's not probably easy to set up unless you're a W9KKN or an N1C, but if you know a guy, they can set it up for you. So I can tell you, it's really high on my list of things to figure out how to do because it was that cool. And it'll save you money on switching and stuff, brute forcing it the old way. You can just program it and then you're good.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, the capabilities were something else, and I'm going to make sure to get a screenshot next time we're doing it. I didn't do that when we were operating during WPX, and so unfortunately I couldn't include it in this screen. But Chris is right. There's so many options for the antennas here, and with the MOAS, we could basically at a software level make it so that it was seamless, and nobody has to click on anything. Nobody has to do something. As soon as Chris is done transmitting, somebody has gone from listening on some beverage because it wasn't inundated by his transmit antenna energy, and they're back on any transmit antennas they want. And the moment that they transmit, now Chris is listening on his best RX option for the moment. And so we're able to do all this stuff on the fly, and it was really neat. Because it is such a new implementation, unfortunately, we had to bug W9KKN and NN1C a number of times and take them off operating positions, or literally wake poor Marty up 30 minutes into his first sleep to come and address something. So while it's a technology that gives us quite an advantage, it's also a technology that has its worries, unless, of course, somebody at the station that's there a lot of the hours before the contest is able to set it up. So it is definitely a forthcoming technology. It's something that we are very interested in perfecting one day, but it is also something that I need to have two technical gurus on the crew, both ahead of time and during the contest, to make sure that we can support. And I think that's why you're not finding it yet at some of the other stations.
Tim, follow up on that. If you could talk about how that relates to interstation interference and the challenges of managing that.
That's a great question. So Chris is about to build his Dream QTH station over in Shawmut, Montana, and it's something that he is absolutely going to be considering too. And what we're talking about is tower placement and antenna placement. That's the primary thing that I took away from W2VJN's book. In California, I had a one tower crank up station. There was nothing I could do as far as placing antennas that on that city lot that would realistically reduce the ability to hear from one band to another, or even in band, which I never had the dream of doing in band. This was something that we started realizing maybe we could do out here. So at the beginning of this project, I placed the 3 T130 towers and labeled them as such because of the idea of minimizing interstation interference. And if you look at the northern tower, that European 40/10, look at the European beverage, that red line, that's the azimuth out to Europe. We've got 40 meters over there, and typically 40 really just blows into 20. And so one thing that I wanted to make sure I did is I wanted to keep 40 and 20 off of the same tower. Keep that second harmonic down as much as possible and any kind of wideband interference. And so the 40-meter antennas, they've got their element tips pointed at the European 20s. And so that helps out immensely. 15 meters, that third harmonic of 40, it's not on the 40-meter tower. We don't have SWR pattern issues, et cetera, nor the interstation interference that you would have when you have it on the same shared tower. So 40 and 10 became a thing to live on one tower together, and then 20 and 15. And our primary point generating area, is those molts out in Europe. So I wanted to have the best interstation interference capabilities to Europe. And so 2 towers were dedicated to the stacks so that the bands that I thought would be problematic would be would not be on a similar tower and would have the element tips pointed at each other. Looking at the JA tower in the southwest, line to JA is that green line over on my friend's property, that beverage. It's basically got its element tips pointed at the European 4010 and kind of like its rear quarter sector at the European 2015 tower. To JA, you know, we really slam into them. We're close. We're going to be one of the best signals. We're going to hear them well, etc. So I didn't mind having multiple bands that might interfere with one another on the same tower. And during domestics, the European towers act as my NA towers. And so the JA tower is our Pacific Northwest antennas. And I felt like we could hear the guys in Washington and VE7 pretty well anyways. So again, I didn't mind just going with one tower for that direction. But that tower was placed specifically so that, again, its element tips were either pointed at the 4010 stacks or its rear quarter was pointed at the 2015 primary stacks to Europe and W1. The 70-foot crank-up North America stack tower, that was an afterthought. That was something that I did not place specifically for a reason. And it is not our primary tower. It's just kind of something that, you know, Dan and I thought, you know, we really ought to have this. And so it was brought in as an afterthought. But the three T130 towers, those were placed very specifically for in-band interstation interference. In that equipment shed that I showed earlier, we have RG400 running, something that I picked up from K3LR is a very important thing to do. And all the coax for the antennas, they are basically DXE 400. You're talking double shielded stuff outside. And I tried to only break them at the pigtails at the antennas. All of my antennas, they are not antennas where the elements are grounded to the booms. They are free floating elements that are insulated from the booms. I felt that that was also important for various reasons. And once we ground, you've got hard lining underneath the earth from the various towers to the equipment shed, which is located at the northern EU tower, that 4010, and then hard line running to the shack. At the shack, there's a ton of bonding that's done along with the house. And I just tried to locate that shack so that if you think about that European 4010 that's closest, it's never pointing at the shack. The JA tower is pointing, you know, off to the side. The European 2015 is off to the side. Even that 70-foot crank-up's never pointing there. I didn't want direct energy pointing right at the shack. And so the shack was placed where it was because of that reason. And VA6AM filters are used. His filters, I feel, are the best quality build, to be honest. And they're lasting longer, and they seem to have the best numbers published. He even takes some of his competitors' stuff and will publish their numbers. And I do believe he's doing an honest job of it. And you can kind of see on his website the performance of his bandpass filters and triplexers versus some of the competition. So I think that, last thing to be said is one thing that Chris, KL9A, has taught me is, you know, my old K3s, they produce some phase noise, and in a multi environment especially, that becomes a big problem. So we're trying to go over to 7610s and better with that in mind, or asking Elecraft, which of course is going to be a tough deal, to upgrade the old K3s to K3Ss for that synthesizer board that helps with the phase noise. So those are some of the things that I've been doing for in-band, for interstation interference. And for the most part, Dan, how would you describe the interference that you experience? You've pretty much done the majority of the signal operating here, 2 radios, 3 radios, et cetera. How is the interference here at ND7K?
Yeah, the interference is absolutely minimal. One quick story. Tim will remember this one. I was doing the IARU, and I was on 40 and 20 CW, kind of at the beginning of the contest. And just imagine this. I'm on, let's say, 7005 on 40, and I'm on 20, like on 14008. So I'm really close to that second harmonic. And for the first hour of the contest, I wasn't hearing anything at all. That's how good it was. And then after about an hour, something weird happened, and all of a sudden I could start to hear a little bit coming through the radio, some noise from 40 to 20. So I call up Tim frantically. I'm like, Tim, something's wrong here. You know, I'm hearing the other band. And he comes into the shack and he's like, dude, you're like 2 kcs away from the second harmonic. What are you doing? You know? And sure enough, I moved about 3 kcs away from the second harmonic, and whatever this new issue was, it went away. So now we could get, 5 kcs away from the second harmonic instead of 2 kcs. So that's the kind of trouble we have at Tim's. I'd say overall it's absolutely amazing. One of the biggest things about that QTH is how quiet it is too. I don't think you've mentioned that too much in the presentation, but he got really lucky. He's got a lot of houses around him, and just every time I get in that shack and I turn on those radios, it's just so quiet. I think that's a huge bonus as well.
It's very cool. It sounds like a lot of planning went into all of this.
That's for sure.
There's no doubt. In fact, the guys here can attest on our group thread that probably 2 years before, maybe a year before I broke ground on the towers, the planning was in full phase. I talked to the boys, and I talked to individuals such as K3LR and W6YI, amongst many others. And I just asked the questions, what did you do right, and what would you redo if you could start over? And each person was kind enough to say, well, let me tell you my story. And so it was really great. And then I could fact check it with guys like Dan and Chris and Nate and Dave back then was the primary circle. And, they'd be honest with me, hey, I do have experience with this, or I don't have experience, or when I was at this station, this. And so all of that went in to the planning phase, and between protractors and surveys and GPS receivers and books and all of that stuff, this is the end product. And so far, I haven't been upset at many decisions whatsoever. Of course, there's some things in retrospect that once you actually employ them, you wonder, hey, could I have done better? But there's not anything that I would honestly say that I kick myself and say, I was really dumb on this. I don't think I have that yet.
How do you control common mode noise at the feed point on the Aggies?
Yeah, so I have Ballon Designs balanced, the 5 kW double core deals on every single Yagi. And like I said, the DXE 400 was chosen. I feel like it's a pretty good coax when we're talking about outside noise. So we choke it at the feed point. It's grounded at the base of the tower. It's grounded again at the equipment shed at that northern EU 4010 tower. It's grounded again when it enters the shack. And then there is ferrite on every single operating position. I didn't think maybe I needed it at first, but I'm kind of like a black magic guy when it comes to this. I'd rather just add ferrite and choke things off even at the radios or amplifiers. And I'm a big believer in giving things a very low impedance path to ground. And so that is always implemented in the shack. One of the things that Axel and I will run this week coming up is some 1-inch strap from the front operating desk. I don't have it pictured, but there's a rear operating desk that we use during multis. And during WPX, we didn't have that level of bonding implemented. We had some various little quirks happen. And so we're going to try that to see if that settles down some of our problems.
Oh, thank you.
Fabulous. Any of your neighbors complain about your antennas?
Of course. I don't know. I honestly don't think I know a ham around. Maybe KL9A will be the first guy I know to put up towers with his location that he's building at that won't have a neighbor complain. I literally was called the town Alpha Henry or the block Alpha Henry. We're on YouTube, so I'll let you put those phonetics together. And then somebody else became that guy when he built a big old horse arena because I don't know, it's some kind of problem with horse folks. But yeah, definitely had that. I remain cordial though. the more astute and intelligent researchers amongst those that were detractors had already actually called the county and realized that, hey, these things are permitted. He's completely within his rights and the law. And from there, I try to be a good neighbor overall. I'm the first guy that's going to come running if you have a 911 call from my old profession. I'm going to make sure that if you need a cup of sugar, that we provide it, and all of that kind of concept, along with something that Tim, K3LR, taught me. And that was to make sure that things looked very professional. If anything breaks, I make sure to give Hector a call, XE2K, he's my tower man. We set up an appointment to fix anything right away, and we get it done so that things look great. Hector goes out of his way to make sure that it's simple things like I don't even have a 3M tape flagging in the wind. That's the level of detail that I try to do this at. And in addition, I reached out to the local wireless internet service provider. And as we all know with the pandemic, how important broadband is, especially in rural areas, this station is now contracted to provide wireless broadband to the region. So try to do things like that to mitigate people's thoughts. But I think we all have probably experienced the fact that as nice as one can be as professional of an operation, you can't always control other people's emotions. Other questions?
Yeah, real quickie, Tim. What are you doing with the 403A bandpass filters? You getting rid of those? You keeping as operational spares, or what's your plan?
Yeah, so what I do, Bob, is when they fail, and I've had a couple go down already, I give them to smarter guys than me, W9KKN, to fix. And I think Bill had to check out for another Zoom he's doing with K3LR tonight.
I'm still here.
Okay.
But yeah,
Bill,
I've got at least one of those fixed, Tim. I just got to get the other
you
one
do?
done. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll bring it for WPX.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, Bill is our guru. I mean, he's the brains, so if he can't fix something, then it doesn't get fixed. But Bill, how easy are those things to fix?
It's really hard to find those button capacitors right now, like really hard.
Would you, I don't know if you've seen Pavel's work. Is Pavel's work a little easier to fix?
Not really, because it's really the same kinds of parts.
Okay.
I mean, it's these just gigantic capacitors and such that are, But yeah, I like Paul's craftsmanship is outstanding. I mean, and I'm not saying that even Renko's is much worse, but it is different. I will say that.
Okay.
It's just somebody put some love into those designs, for sure.
Yeah, I just bought some of his low power filters. They look real good.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, have you ever gone over to a neighbor's house to get the RFI out of their computer speaker with some ferrites or a capacitor or anything?
So yes, Steve, in Southern California, I had to do exactly that. I was on a city lot. I was right next door to folks. There have been some home sales on this block. There's approximately 6 homes. This is a 5-acre minimal parcel size area. But on the pavement that you'll see to the north or top of the picture, there's about 6 homes going around me. And I've talked to a number of folks after they've newly bought, knowing the towers are there. I guess there was some sales, for whatever reasons, folks have moved. And the new neighbors have commented to me that they've been asked, hey, does that interfere with your TV, your cable, your computer, et cetera? And the answer I've gotten from my neighbors is that they just answer like, I don't even know the towers are there, the antennas are there. I don't know when he's operating. I just see him. He doesn't interfere with me. And so it's a two-way street. I've taught my neighbors that, hey, some of the reasons why those things are so high is because they produce less interference to you and I get less interference from you. So far, I've been very lucky. I haven't had anything noisy like Dan was attesting to. But when I do, that will be hopefully a conversation that is well aided by the way that I try to treat my neighbors and, be that good neighbor to them.
Well, and you even have your family trained to unplug all the devices before a contest.
Yes, that is correct. Bill is right. One of the things I picked up from visiting K3LRs was the fact, and hearing from some of the guys that have operated there, was that I asked the operators here, including my family, and my family's well trained on this, everything gets unplugged during a major contest. My daughter, if she needs to do some schoolwork on her laptop, she's wonderful enough to ask, hey, Dad, is it okay if I charge my laptop? I got to do something for school. And so, I've tried to teach them, well, yeah, no problem. Let's do it when we have the doldrums, around 11 or 12 p.m., just South America and the Caribbean's coming in. European run's done. Let's go ahead and charge the cell phones.
Hey, Tim, how did you decide on the T26 towers? I wasn't even familiar with those till I did a search on them.
Yeah,
and
so
I noticed in his last catalog, they're not listed anymore, the straight T26 sections.
Okay. So yeah, I had bought my crank up from Tajian because my Elmer had taught me about the LM470 that he had bought from Tri-X. And I had a good experience overall with that crank up. I feel like it's pretty robust. So I went to Carl and I asked him, hey, are you able to sell me a few 130-foot deals? Do you have a license out there, a PEI for Arizona, et cetera? He said he did. And the T26, besides having some LM470 experience and so forth, Glenn, K6NA, had actually written on Tower Talk about the torsional strength of the W bracing versus the D bracing. And so I know Glenn to be a pretty smart guy on this stuff. And because I had an ability to actually communicate easily with somebody such as Carl Tajian, and ask questions and work and collaborate with him, I felt like the T26 was the route to go.
Yeah, it's a nice sized tower. I'm sure it's capable of taller than 130 feet. Were you limited by your local government there, or what?
Yeah, so at the time that I was preparing to put those up and was looking to get a permit, the rule, well, not the rule, basically the request from the county was that if these things fall within your own property,
right,
we'll play easy with you. And since then, that crank up tower, I actually applied for a tower permit also, and I was sent a refund on that application because about a year after I put up the big towers, the county said, you know what? We don't even bother with tower permits anymore. If you're a ham radio operator and they fall within your own property, you don't even have to get a permit any longer in this county.
Nice.
Yeah, so the 130-foot limitation, I do have some daydreams, if I hit the lottery or whatever, or Dan, decides to get a second job, maybe we'll put up the northern tower, we'll push it upwards.
Yeah, for low bands, it opens up some possibilities.
Right.
Yeah. And one other quick question, is the ICOM 7610 better than a pair of 7300s? I know 7300s don't have the greatest, front end performance. Do they have something extra going on there?
Chris, you have a 7300, don't you?
Yeah.
Can you comment on that? You've got experience with both, a lot of experience with both.
I'd say it's like night and day difference in every respect. The phase noise in the 7300, you can't do SO2R with two 7300s without.
Oh yeah, on 160, I've heard they just go to hell.
Yeah, it's not a thing. The 7610 is like a totally different animal, completely.
Okay. Interesting.
Additional questions?
A question for Chris and Dan about choosing the stack setup on the fly. Does the requirement stay stable enough that you can just do it, as conditions change, or do you have to switch that around a lot?
You just click on it on the screen. I guess I don't really understand the question, maybe.
Well, I mean, are you listening for the the best signal and just basing it on the received signal strength
Oh, yeah.
as far as
So
the takeoff angle?
yeah, maybe Dan can answer this one too. The biggest thing with the MOAS and the stacks and all that stuff was the in-band. So you could hear while the other guy's transmitting, so you don't lose anything. At Tim's, if you're working Europe, you pretty much have the stack in line no matter what. I mean, I don't even think you can select a lot of antennas on the stack. Can you, Tim? Can you individually select them?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So I don't know. I never did.
I think Dan and Chris and I have kind of talked jointly on this, and I think it's actually Chris's line. Basically, with the stacks, let's say you're running a 3-high stack. You're going to run that 3-high stack pretty much most of the contest, and you'll pull out individual antennas as you believe it's necessary for a contact that you think you may not be able to do. At the beginning of the contest, or better yet, at the beginning of the opening or the very end of an opening, you might choose the 2 high ones because that may be the band opener, band closer, maybe even just the high one. However, on a rainy day, Dan, what have you experienced here on a rainy day? Like, what happens?
Yeah, so on a rainy day, and I've seen this at lots of other QTHs too, you start to hear the rain static on the higher antennas. And so being able to put those out of line in those situations is a huge bonus,
With the MOAS, you can transmit on both and then automatically receive just on one, and you don't have to switch with anything. It's automatic. And that is super powerful.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most ridiculously amazing aspects of MOAS when we're not talking just in band, is that, I've seen it here where the rain static on the upper antenna is S9 plus 30, and the middle antenna and lower antenna can actually allow us to make contacts on the receive side of things. But, we want that top antenna on the transmit side. And that MOAS with the software, the speed of software for switching antennas is just amazing, because we could be transmitting on whatever amount of antennas we want, but only receiving on the antennas that will allow for the queue to happen.
On the quiet antenna.
That's right.
Is the MOAS, is that a relay-based switching arrangement? I mean, software controlled, but is it relays?
So sort of, it's using shift registers to act as relays, as just logical transistors. So they're very much like relays. They can handle not exactly relay level current. I mean, and a MOAS in its entirety can do like a half an amp or something, depending on the configuration. But of relays, it has a 8x8. So 64 logical outputs, so in one board, and you can have more than one of them. So that's a lot of outputs to manage.
Is it pin diodes? Is it that sort of thing?
They're not pin diodes. No, they're transistors.
Huh. So
it opens up the gate and then just sends 12 volts through, or it can do high side switching or low side switching, either one you want. Like it can go to ground, or it can switch in a voltage either way.
Is there any information online about that project?
Yeah. So if you go to k1xm.org, kilo1xraymike.org, and you can read about it. I think it's under antenna switching. It's not exactly called MOAS on the front page, but mother of all switches, I think, is its nickname or whatever. And yeah, if you read the manual or just download the basic manual, you can kind of walk through some of its basic capabilities. There are a few special things that Paul ended up adding for us in the last minute that aren't even in the latest document, but it's very capable platform.
Very cool. Thank you.
And you can build it yourself too. I mean, you just get the PCB from them, and then put it together. Get all the parts from Mouser. Takes a long time. There's a lot of little pieces like those. If you take a look at it, there's I think there's like 128 capacitors or something crazy.
Is it all surface mount?
No, it's all through hole. So I'm actually trying to make a surface mount version of the board now, because I would love to spend my time having, a pick and place machine do that instead of my hands.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions? Thank you, Bill.
No worries.
Nice
Okay, so-
presentation. Thank you.
I want to share something else here then. Let's see. Here we go. So this will be the QTH, the up and coming Superstation in W7. This is Google Earth here, showing Shawmut, Montana. I know Chris wasn't expecting me to do this. But Chris, KO9A, just closed on 21 acres in Montana. And he will be doing his best and collaborating with N9RV to be creating quite a QTH over there in Montana. And while he's operating, I think we'll be fishing at the Deadman's Basin. But as you can see, there's not a lot of people around Chris. There's a fifth wheel trailer down the hill from him. There's a house down the hill from him. And he's going to be putting towers along just above some hills heading down towards Europe. And he's got enough area to run 800-foot beverages, to have multiple towers that NK7U Joe was kind enough to.
Tim's fancy internet apparently isn't working that well on the property.
Frozen in time.
See what Chris does to challenge us.
Hey, Tim, you got to renegotiate your contract. We lost you for a bit.
Yeah. Am I still here or am I frozen?
You're good.
You're good now.
Yeah. So, Chris will be putting up something. Of course, we're all going to help him. And we're planning to do some multi-operations over at Chris's place. I think what's planned this summer, Chris, you said a container, and what else might be happening this summer?
Yeah, so there's nothing there. There's a whole bunch of horse poop, and I mean, literally, that's all it is what you see.
Do you have power?
No, but power is just off the screen. It's 1,300 feet away. So I'll get that run probably next year.
About right here where the mouse is at?
Yep, it's right there. It's on that end of that road. So, and it actually runs all the way down north-south. So I'll get power run next year. I need a container, a cabin. I might put up something we'll see. I don't know. It's a lot of work. I have a full-time job still. Tim's retired. So, I'll be on this weekend at NAQP from right about where his hand is with my little HF6V. So if you work me, that's where I'll be.
Well, I'm glad N9RV already knows about this. So.
Yeah, he's been giving me crap for years. Well, and my whole stockpile of antennas and towers is on his property. So he's excited to get rid of it and get part of his land back.
Last I heard, Pat said, what antennas and towers?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what happened to him.
Okay. All right. Well, is there any other questions before we come to an end here?
Thanks, Tim. Pretty cool.
That's good.
Where exactly is that, Chris? What town is it near?
So it's near nothing. It's in the town of Shawmut, population 42. If you know where Harleton is, maybe Tim can zoom out a little bit.
Yep.
The town or the Wheatland County has 2,100 people. It's 2 hours from Bozeman, so you can Google Earth it. There's not a whole lot going on out there, but the hunting should be great. So that's a bonus.
Just watch out for the bears. That's all.
Yeah, there's probably no bears out there, but there's plenty of deer and there's a lot of antelope, elk run through there. It's a little bit off the mountain. There's mountain ranges. There's 3 of them. One's 40 miles away. One's 75. Great views of those. So they're a little bit far out.
US 12 starts in Detroit, so that's interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, I was looking at that. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
My son lives near Bozeman, and the hunting is fabulous. That's why he moved there.
Oh, yeah, everything's great here. One nice thing about this place is it doesn't get the snow like Bozeman does. I was just there a couple days ago and I'm right to it. Whereas here, there's 3 feet of snow in my front yard.
Is this going to be your full-time QTH then, Chris?
No. This is a go there on the weekends. Eventually, I'll remote it so I can actually still be on the air.
Yeah.
But definitely not going to live near in Shawmut. Yeah. I mean, land is cheap because who wants to go out there, right? Like,
Shawmut used to have nightlife, but she went away to college last year.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Excellent. Good plans. I like to hear that. And Dan, if Dan is still there, I appreciated your 2BSIQ videos, and I appreciate both of you guys for signing after every contact, which is still an issue with a lot of other operators. So thank you.
Yeah, those videos were great.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just in awe.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan, you operate between the two keyboards like it's, your hands are flowing and it's wow.
You must do that in your sleep or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of practice for sure. I mean,
wow.
A lot of years, me and Chris will start our preparations for CQ Worldwide. It used to be on the 4th of July was the starting point when we start training, so
yeah. Wow.
It's a lot of work, but
that's great.
It's your 10,000 hours.
Just that's right. My mind. You guys
I love your one comment that you just picked up a soldering iron like 2 weeks before for the first time. You got a kick out of that.
Yeah, I'm definitely an appliance operator here. I know how to use the radios, but that's about it.
Yep, that's good. Good stuff. Hey, thanks everyone that did this. We really appreciate it.